A continent's hidden supply lines are not legend, they are ledger. This is the top 10 African drug cartel networks since the 90s, some tracked and jailed. This ranking uses court records, Interpol notices, UNODC, Transparency International Index, IMF datasets, STAR, and ICIJ. Each entry is scored against 10 universal criteria, with gaps clearly stated. Now for the evidence. Our expose narrator takes you through the records, rings, filings, asset trails, and verified documents. Thank you, Dr. Komla. Today, we reveal cartels that turned the 90s into Africa's narco-era, PAPE, chased across oceans, with some finally caged.
Disclaimer. This ranking is not just a list. It is a reminder that drug trafficking and illicit cartel operations do not end in profit. They end in interdiction, exposure, prosecution, sanctions, and asset forfeiture. Empires fall. Records remain. The top 10 on the list is the Akasha organization, Kenya, narcotics trafficking. Case Spotlight. A controlled handover forced the curtain to fall. In Mombasa, on 9th November 2014, DEA directed sources received 99 kilograms of heroin and 2 kilograms of methamphetamine. The trail moved from covert meetings to arrests, then to a forced expulsion on 29 January 2017. New York became the venue. Sentences followed in 2019 and 2020. He is a Kenyan, born in the late 1970s. Last known jurisdiction was the United States, then a return to Kenya after sentence completion. He is a convict under United States federal custody. Snapshot: indicators and status. The network linked East African coastal logistics to Asian suppliers and American demand. It used layered intermediaries and alleged corrupt payments to obstruct justice. It showed tradecraft that blended cargo concealment and direct supply. Sanctions were not the driver. Judicial orders and custodial sentences delivered the break. Investigative detail. Undercover meetings in Nairobi and Mombasa ran from April 2014 to November 2014. In April 2014, a Skype introduction linked the organization to a Pakistan supplier who offered 420 kilograms of high-purity heroin. In June 2014, the team negotiated precursor access and a plan to produce methamphetamine in Mozambique. In September and October 2014, 1 kilogram samples of heroin and methamphetamine were handed to confidential sources in Nairobi. In early November 2014, a 98-kilogram heroin consignment was delivered in person. Provisional arrests occurred in Mombasa on 9 November 2014 before a planned meeting. On 29 January 2017, the brothers were expelled from Kenya and flown to New York under DEA escort. Guilty pleas were entered on 25 October 2018 to narcotics, weapons, and obstruction offenses. The record plea and government proffer set out a bribery scheme that targeted Kenyan officials to defeat proceedings. The record also described violence against rivals, including a kidnapping in Kenya and a linked murder in South Africa. Sentencing followed. Baktash received 25 years on 16 August 2019. Ibrahim received 23 years on 10 January 2020. The docket lists the matter in the Southern District of New York under 14 CR 716 VM. Financial trace and beneficial ownership map. Cash payments moved in hand and through informal channels. Shell layering was limited. The value chain sat on commodity flows, not financial complexity. Corridors touched Kenya to Pakistan to the United Arab Emirates, and then the United States. Beneficial control sat with core family leadership and 2 foreign brokers. The banking footprint was episodic. The enforcement weight came from recordings and controlled deliveries. Mission recap. Arrests on 9 November 2014. Transfer on 29 January 2017. Guilty pleas and sentences in 2019 and 2020. Statutory exposure in the United States for narcotics conspiracy carries up to life imprisonment and fines as set by federal law. National context. Kenya is a maritime hub with busy ports and regional trade. Container volumes create screening pressure. Cross-border demand for heroin routes supports coastal cells. Anti-corruption drives and judicial cooperation have improved. Capacity remains under stress from volume and evolving concealment. Asset recovery and sanction status. This case turned on imprisonment, not sanction listings. Seizures targeted narcotics and proceeds in operational cash. There is no public record of large asset repatriations. Cooperation was anchored in mutual assistance and joint operations. Gap clarifier. Unknown precise profit splits. Unknown full ledger of historical shipments. Some payments described as corrupt remain under wider inquiry. Civil forfeiture totals remain limited in public dockets. The top 9 on the list is the Guinea-Bissau Naval Trafficking Cell. Guinea-Bissau. Cocaine trafficking. Case spotlight. A maritime sting exposed a state-embedded route. On the Atlantic on 2 April 2013, United States agents concluded an operation against senior Guinea-Bissau figures. The most prominent naval figure was taken, moved, and later sentenced. The case documented plans to move cocaine through West Africa to North America. He is a Guinea-Bissau national, born in the 1950s. Last known jurisdiction was the United States, then a return to Guinea-Bissau after sentence completion. He is a convict under United States federal judgment. Snapshot: indicators and status. The pattern used military access to ports and patrol craft. It offered safe passage for cocaine consignments. It proposed exchanges with foreign armed groups. The network had high protection risk due to ranks and uniforms. It damaged national credibility and signaled narco-state features. Investigative detail. The operation used recorded meetings from mid-2012 to late 2012 in Bissau. The team agreed to store multi-ton cocaine for onward sale. A portion would pay state actors. They discussed weapons for a South American armed group. On 2 April 2013, agents boarded a vessel in international waters off West Africa. 3 men were taken into custody. Transfers to New York followed on 4 April 2013. The record shows a proposed fee of $1 million for each 1,000 kilograms received in Guinea-Bissau. One aide pleaded guilty on 29 April 2014. He received 6 years and 6 months on 3 September 2014. A second aide pleaded guilty the same day and received 5 years on 8 December 2014. The former Navy chief pleaded guilty in May 2014. On 5 October 2016, Judge Richard Berman imposed 4 years with credit for time served. Supervised release for 3 years was ordered. The prosecution history documents the yacht meeting, the custody chain, and the maritime transfer. Financial trace and beneficial ownership map. Value moved through bulk cash and in-kind with criminal groups. The chain relied on command authority over vessels and port access. Beneficial control sat with senior officers and aides. Corridors extended from the Caribbean and Brazil to the Bissau coast, then to the Sahel and European nodes. The banking trail was thin. The leverage came from logistics and protection. Mission recap. Arrest at sea in April 2013. Guilty pleas were recorded later in New York. Sentencing on 5 October 2016. Statutory penalty for cocaine trafficking conspiracy in the United States can reach decades in prison and fines under federal schedules. National context. Guinea-Bissau faces institutional fragility and coup cycles. Its coastline and archipelago are difficult to police. International partners have supported reforms. Persistent vulnerabilities remain at ports, customs, and naval command. Asset recovery and sanction status. The case focused on custodial outcomes. There were no major published asset returns to Guinea-Bissau. International monitoring increased after sentencing. Subsequent seizures in the region reinforced the corridor risk. Gap clarifier. Unknown proceeds distribution within the command. Unknown full roster of external partners. Asset ledgers are not publicly filed. Post-release monitoring of the principal figure remains limited in open sources. The top 8 on the list is the Antonio Injai linked network, Guinea-Bissau, alleged cocaine trafficking and material support. Case spotlight. An indictment named a former armed forces chief.
On 18th April 2013, filings in New York alleged that Antonio Injai conspired to traffic cocaine and provide material support to a foreign terrorist organization. Public notices in 2021 announced a reward and renewed pursuit. The case remains open. He is a Guinea-Bissau national, born in the 1950s. Last known jurisdiction was Guinea-Bissau. He is a fugitive under a United States notice and international outreach. Snapshot, indicators, and status. The allegations describe command-level protection for cocaine routes. They cite negotiations with actors posing as traffickers. The pattern mirrors state-embedded facilitation. It indicates a corridor from Latin America to West Africa with onward transit to Europe and North America. Investigative detail. Charges were unsealed on 18 April 2013 in New York. The filing describes recorded meetings in Bissau from June 2012 to November 2012. The allegation is that the commander agreed to receive and store FARC-owned cocaine in Guinea-Bissau for shipment to the United States. The allegation further states that a share of the cocaine would be used to pay government officials. The filing adds a weapons strand. Surface-to-air missiles and other arms would be imported under a military cover story, then handed to the armed group. Co-conspirators were arrested in early April 2013 in West Africa and in Colombia. The indictment sets out 4 counts. Narco-terrorism conspiracy. Conspiracy to distribute 5 kilograms or more of cocaine with United States import intent. Conspiracy to provide material support to a designated foreign terrorist organization. Conspiracy to acquire and transfer anti-aircraft missiles. A United States reward program announced up to $5 million on 19 August 2021 for information leading to the arrest or conviction. No arrest is recorded in open sources as of today. Financial trace and beneficial ownership map. Proceeds were expected to move in bulk cash and in kind. Beneficial control aligned with command authority and trusted emissaries. Corridors linked Latin American suppliers to the Bissau coastline and riverine islands, then to the Sahel roads and European seaports. Banking visibility was minimal. The control point was territory and protection. Mission recap. Indictment on 18 April 2013. Reward messaging in August 2021 by a United States program. The statutory penalty for the charged narcotics conspiracy can reach decades in federal prison, and material support count carries additional severe penalties if convicted. National context. Guinea-Bissau faces institutional fragility and coup cycles. Its coastline and archipelago are difficult to police. International partners have supported reforms. Persistent vulnerabilities remain at ports, customs, and naval command. Asset recovery and sanction status. There is no public judgment or forfeiture order against the named figure. Sanctions or forfeiture steps would follow arrest or additional listings. Partners maintain watch and reward mechanisms. Gap clarifier. Allegations remain untested in court for this figure. No custody, no confiscation ledger. Beneficial ownership detail is based on allegation narratives in filings and public notices. The next entries move from ports to power, and the seized accounts begin to surface.
The top 7 on the list is the Nayele Ametefe, Ghana. Cocaine importation. Case spotlight. Heathrow scanners caught a heavy suitcase on November 10, 2014. Cocaine bricks sat inside. A travel pattern collapsed in one night. A guilty plea followed within weeks. She is a Ghanaian, born in the early 1980s. Last known jurisdiction was the United Kingdom. Arrested by the UK Border Force with casework by the National Crime Agency. Snapshot. Indicators and status. The method was aviation couriering.
The pattern showed repeated travel and privileged departure channels. A VVIP lounge was used at Kotoka. That signaled insider risk. The quantity was significant. The route was Accra to London. The status is convicted. Investigative detail. Heathrow arrest took place on 10th November 2014. The travel leg was British Airways flight number BA078 from Accra on 9th November 2014. First appearance was at Uxbridge Magistrates Court on 11th November 2014. Committal was posted on the Isleworth Crown Court Board on 27th November 2014 at Court 5. The case reference on the court notice included T20141080 and 88NC0093814. The charge cited importation of a Class A controlled drug under Section 170 of the Customs and Excise Management Act, 1979, and Section 3 of the Misuse of Drugs Act, 1971. Prosecutor Rarinder Jahal confirmed the Heathrow baggage check and the single trolley case narrative. The cocaine weight recorded was 12.5 kilograms. A guilty plea was entered. Sentencing was on 6 January 2015 at Isleworth Crown Court. The British High Commission later issued a public clarification on 16 November 2015 that she remained in custody and explained that the UK-Ghana prisoner transfer agreement would not apply retroactively. Financial trace and beneficial ownership map. The funds trail was simple: cash advance, courier fee, and a promised balance upon delivery. Beneficial control sat with upstream brokers. The transport chain relied on airport facilitation. The financial corridor was from Accra to London. The drug corridor was from South America to West Africa to Europe. The nodes were couriers, fixers, and baggage points. The banking imprint was light. Cash settled the risk. Mission recap. Arrest at Heathrow. Guilty plea entered. Sentence delivered on January 6, 2015. The statutory maximum for Class A importation in England is life imprisonment and an unlimited fine. That remains the penalty ceiling if convicted today. National context. Ghana faces transit pressures. Air routes intersect with West African supply chains. Enforcement capacity is improving. Airport controls now face stronger audits. Cooperation with UK agencies increased after the case. Asset recovery and sanction status. UK forfeiture covered the drug exhibit. Ghanaian authorities pursued local proceeds. Media reports noted account actions tied to the case. No international sanctions listing is recorded. The sentence was served with parole, reported later. Gap clarifier. The upstream controller remains unclear. The full VIP facilitation chain is not on the public record. Some travel history details are sealed. The top 6 on the list is Glen Agliotti, South Africa. Drug dealing. Case Spotlight. An undercover project cornered a supply pipeline. Negotiations and loads were tracked. A plea bargain surfaced in court. A public figure admitted to drug dealing. He is a South African, born in the late 1950s. Last known jurisdiction was South Africa. Arrested and later a state witness under prosecutorial oversight. Snapshot. Indicators and status. The network touched the precursors and the finished product. It used freight, warehouses, and corrupt contacts. It overlapped with high-level corruption. It signaled a mature brokerage model. The status is convicted. On drug dealing counts, separate murder charges ended in acquittal. Investigative detail. The plea was taken on 5 December 2007 in the Alberton Regional Court sitting at Germiston. The state outlined a Scorpions investigation that seized a consignment of hashish in excess of 2 tons in July 2006 at Alberton. The plea and sentence agreement imposed a 10-year term, suspended for 5 years. A fine of 300,000 rand was ordered. A further 200,000 rand was ordered to the Criminal Assets Recovery Account. The court recorded an obligation to testify in State versus Paparas and others. Independent reporting placed the drug volume at about 2,064 kilograms across the linked trafficking period from June 2005 to July 2006. Financial trace and beneficial ownership map. The chain moved precursors into Gauteng. Freight forwarders and bonded storage were key. Warehouses masked consignments among legitimate goods. Brokers handled cash and trade offsets. Beneficial control sat with brokers and financiers. The corridor linked Indian Ocean shipping to Johannesburg distribution. Mission recap. Guilty plea recorded in 2007. Sentencing followed. Cooperation with the state occurred in parallel. Under South Africa's Drugs and Drug Trafficking Act, dealing offenses can draw imprisonment not exceeding 25 years or a substantial fine. That is the penalty frame if convicted. National context. South Africa is a logistics hub. Ports and road freight create cover for loads. Complex financial services can hide proceeds. Anti-corruption failures widened exposure during the period. Asset recovery and sanctions status. Forfeiture tools exist under the Act. Confiscation orders may offset criminal benefit. No international sanctions listing applies. The media later reported his death in July 2023. The conviction record stands. Gap clarifier. Exact kilogram totals across all linked consignments are not fully public. Full lists of nominees and warehousing companies remain sealed or redacted. The top 5 on the list is the Amin Daria crew case, Kenya, heroin trafficking. Case spotlight. Kenyan forces intercepted a dhow near Mombasa in July 2014. A heroin cargo was recovered. The vessel was destroyed at sea. A long court journey began. He is Yusuf Yaqub, a Pakistani national, born in the late 1970s. His last known jurisdiction was Kenya. Arrested by Kenyan authorities and charged before the High Court at Mombasa. Snapshot, indicators, and status. The shipment used a stateless dhow. It exploited the Indian Ocean lane. Loads were concealed on board. The case spanned arrest, trial, sentence, and appeal. Status shifted after appellate rulings. Investigative detail. The charge sheet dates from 2nd July 2014 to 18th July 2014 at Kilindini Port, Mombasa, berth number 8. The vessel identity alternated in records between Amin Daria and Al-Nur. Quantities recorded in the proceedings were 377.224 kilograms of creamish granular heroin, 33,200 liters of liquid heroin, and 2,400 liters of diesel mixed with heroin. The total valuation on the charge was 1.322 billion Kenyan shillings. A presidential order led to the destruction of the ship at sea in August 2014 while proceedings were pending. On 10th March 2023, a Mombasa court imposed life terms and fines set at 3 times the drug value. On 29th May 2025, the High Court at Mombasa quashed the convictions and set aside the sentences. The judgment cited a defective charge, a broken chain of custody, interpreter deficiencies, and the evidentiary prejudice caused by destroying the vessel during trial. The court also referenced obligations under the law of the sea. Financial trace and beneficial ownership map. The corridor was Makran coast to the Swahili coast. Couriers used dhows and motherships. Beneficial control sat outside Kenya. Kenyan waters were a transit point. The value realization would have occurred in foreign markets. Payment chains used cash handlers and hawala.
Mission recap. Arrests followed the 2014 interdiction. Trial concluded with life terms in 2023. Appeals succeeded in 2025. Under Kenya's narcotics law, trafficking may attract life imprisonment and a fine of at least 1 million shillings or 3 times the drug value. That remains the statutory penalty if convicted. National context. Kenya faces maritime smuggling pressure. The coastline is long. Regional instability aids traffickers. Interagency coordination has improved since 2014. Asset recovery and sanctions status. The heroin exhibits were forfeited. The vessel was destroyed at sea. After the appeal, sentences and fines fell away. No sanctions listings applied to the crew in open sources. Gap clarifier. Ultimate beneficial owners remain unidentified in public judgments. Correspondent payments and insurance covers are not on record. The top 10 on the list is the Seedi Ba network, Guinea-Bissau, cocaine trafficking. Case Spotlight. A warehouse raid in September 2019 exposed sacks of flour with hidden bricks. The haul was historic. The court moved faster than the politics. A network went on trial. He is Brahima Seedi Ba, a citizen of Guinea-Bissau. Born in the late 1970s, his last known jurisdiction was Guinea-Bissau. Arrested by the judicial police and prosecuted in the regional court of Cachao. Snapshot, indicators, and status. The load measured about 1.8 tons of cocaine. The route ran from Latin America to West Africa to Europe. The network used a food import front. It showed corporate layering. It used warehouses near Bissau. The status has shifted due to later appeals. Investigative detail. Judicial police seized nearly 1,900 kilograms of cocaine on 2 September 2019 in parallel operations at Bissau, Cayo, and Binhante under Operation Nevera. The cash included bricks concealed in rice and flour. The Regional Court of Cachao convicted 12 men on 31 March 2020. Sentences for the 2 ringleaders were 16 years. Investigators documented a logistics model that staged loads on islets of the Bijagos archipelago, then moved them by road to storage. The court narrative tracked money transfers through Wari, Western Union, and MoneyGram by 7 associates. Corporate fronts included Palmeras Import and Export. On 14 October 2020, the Court of Appeal reduced sentences, overturned criminal association and money laundering, and ordered the return of seized funds and many assets. On 23 June 2022, the highest court overturned the 2 ringleaders' convictions. Public reports also noted that the 2 principals were not in custody immediately after the 2020 conviction. Financial trace and beneficial ownership map. The entity chain included an import company. The goods covered were rice and flour. The corridor linked Atlantic suppliers to Bissau. Beneficial control sat with Ba and foreign partners. Cash handling relied on hotels and exchange dealers. Maritime nodes fed trucks and warehouses. Mission recap. Seizure occurred on September 2, 2019. Convictions were issued on March 31, 2020. Sentences ranged from 4 to 16 years. Appeals altered outcomes in 2022. Under national law, drug trafficking draws heavy custodial terms. Reported maxima in the case reached 16 years. That defines the penalty range applied. Global initiative. National context. Guinea-Bissau is a known transit hub. Political volatility weakens oversight. International cooperation remains crucial. Judicial capacity shows progress and strain. Asset recovery and sanction status. The cocaine was seized. Vehicles and equipment were forfeited. No UN sanctions listing exists. New cases in 2024 and 2025 show continued cooperation with the United States. Extraditions followed a separate large seizure. Gap clarifier. Corporate registries remain opaque. The full shareholder list sits outside public access. Protection networks are documented but fluid. Surprised by the placements.
The top 3 will challenge assumptions about secrecy versus records. If you track the gaps and the recoveries, you will see why. The top 3 are not the loudest headlines. They are the hardest records. Aircraft, sanctions, and a case that outlived the 1990s all tell one truth: paper trails never sleep. The top 3 on the list is Buruji Kashamu, Nigeria, alleged heroin importation conspiracy. Case Spotlight. A second superseding indictment was filed on 21st May 1998. It was named a Chicago-bound heroin conspiracy. Years later, appellate rulings kept the case alive. A 2015 siege at his Lagos residence showed the file still had force. He is a Nigerian and Beninese dual national, born in 1958. Last known jurisdiction was Lagos. Fugitive posture under a United States indictment ended with his death in 2020. Snapshot, indicators, and status. The pattern used commercial flights and paid couriers. The corridor linked West Africa to O'Hare. Co-defendants pleaded guilty in large numbers. The case carried a PEP risk when he entered elected office. The United States maintained that he was the organizer. Investigative detail. The case number included 94 CR 172. A grand jury returned updated charges on 21st May 1998. 11 co-defendants pleaded guilty. 1 was convicted at trial. 2 remained fugitives. Appellate decisions in 2011 and 2014 rejected efforts to end the prosecution. In January 2017, the Seventh Circuit dismissed his civil suit that sought to block an alleged abduction. The court restated that the indictment alleged a 21 U.S.C. 963 conspiracy to import heroin. The identity dispute from a failed United Kingdom extradition did not bar prosecution. Nigerian enforcement officers attempted a provisional arrest in May 2015. A Nigerian court halted the action. He died in Lagos on 8 August 2020. Financial trace and beneficial ownership map. Payments were made in cash to couriers. Staging occurred in coastal West Africa. Travel legs used scheduled airlines. Meetings in Cotonou and Lagos appeared throughout witness narratives. Beneficial control of the courier cell sat with the alleged organizer. Ancillary fronts were basic trading and hospitality units that offered cover but not complex layering. Mission recap. Indictment preserved on the docket from the late 1990s to the 2010s. Extradition from the United Kingdom failed on identity grounds. Extradition from Nigeria remained unresolved at death. Under 21 U.S.C. 963 and 960, a conspiracy tied to 1 kilogram or more of heroin carries 10 years to life if convicted. National context. Nigeria sits on major air and sea lanes. NDLEA capacity improved, yet extradition outcomes depend on courts and treaty steps. Mutual legal assistance remains sensitive where identity disputes appear. Asset recovery and sanction status. No United States forfeiture judgment in his name is visible in open sources. Co-defendants served sentences in the United States. Proceeds tracing remains incomplete in public records. Gap clarifier. United Kingdom extradition files are partly sealed. Claims of case closure after his death require docket-level confirmation. Open source access is limited. The top 2 on the list is Mohammed Bachir Sulaman, Mozambique, Narcotics Trafficking Network. Case Spotlight. On 1st June 2010, the United States designated him under the Foreign Narcotics Kingpin Designation Act. The same day, 3 Mozambique businesses tied to him were sanctioned. The move froze assets under United States jurisdiction and barred United States persons from dealings. He is a Mozambican national born in 1958. Last known jurisdiction was Maputo. No United States arrest is recorded. snapshot, indicators, and status. The profile is networked. It uses retail hubs and real estate as cover. The risk set includes cannabis resin, heroin, cocaine, and mandrax. The red flags are cash intensity and mixed trade revenue that can host commingling. Investigative detail. The designation cited Grupo MBS Limitada. It is named Grupo MBS Cayem Center. It is named Maputo Shopping Center. The United States statement referenced the 2010 International Narcotics Control Strategy Report. It described Mozambique as a transit country. It recorded permissive factors like porous borders and corruption risk. The action was built on a presidential identification under the Kingpin Act earlier that day. The public record shows continued listing under the SDNTK program. Financial trace and beneficial ownership map. Grupo MBS Limitada sits at the core. Retail flows and mall tenancy offer cash cover. Family ownership consolidates beneficial control. Bank exposure arises through correspondent channels used by local banks. Trade corridors touch the Indian Ocean and South Africa. Import fronts include consumer goods and construction materials. Mission recap. Designation took effect on 1 June 2010. Assets in the United States were blocked. Dealings by United States persons were prohibited. He has denied wrongdoing in press commentary. Under the Kingpin Act criminal provisions, individuals face up to 10 years. Corporate officers can face up to 30 years. Corporations face fines up to $10 million if convicted. National context. Mozambique's coastline and ports are long and thinly policed. After 2010, enforcement improved, yet syndicates adapt fast. Illicit finance can cross into South African systems through trade and remittances. Asset recovery and sanctions status. The United States listing remains referenced in official search tools. Domestic court seizures tied to the designation are sparse in public records. Removal or delisting is not confirmed in official notices available to the public. Gap clarifier. Court-tested convictions are absent in open sources. Ownership changes inside the group are opaque. Beneficial ownership disclosures in Mozambique are limited. The top one on the list is Air Cocaine Aviation Network, Mali, transatlantic cocaine trafficking by air. Case Spotlight. In early November 2009, a Boeing 727 was found burned near Tarkant. The airframe had been emptied. Forensics reported a cocaine trace. The wreck became the symbol of a desert runway economy. It is a transnational network formed in the late 2000s, last known corridor being northern Mali and the wider Sahel. It operated irregular long-range flights. Snapshot, indicators, and status. The model used executive jets and narrow-body airliners. Flights departed northern South America. Payloads landed on improvised strips in the Sahel. The consignments moved north by convoy to coastal shipping or the Maghreb. Arrests in 2011 showed the file stayed active. Investigative detail. Malian authorities opened a criminal probe in late November 2009, reporting linked the flight path to Venezuela. By March 2011, 4 suspects were in custody in Mali. United States and European assessments documented at least 10 suspect aircraft in the region since 2006. The Congressional Research Service noted that the Sahel was emerging as an air corridor. Expert studies and regional reporting cited a Guinea-Bissau registration in some accounts. Disputes over tail numbers and ownership showed the shell layers at work. The cargo estimate varied widely in public sources. The constant was scaled in tons, and the use of long-range fuel plans. Financial trace and beneficial ownership map. Aircraft hire and fuel logistics required major advance financing. Funds flowed from South American suppliers. Facilitation payments supported access to remote strips. Overland handlers moved loads to trusted waypoints. Cash conversion used trade goods, vehicle imports, and gold. Shell entities sat offshore.
Nominees held aircraft paperwork. Local partners provided storage and convoy support. Mission recap. The 2009 wreck triggered multi-agency action. Arrests followed in 2011. Intelligence sharing increased across the Sahel. Under United States law, a conspiracy tied to 5 kilograms or more of cocaine with United States import intent carries 10 years to life if convicted. National context. The Sahel is vast and thinly governed. Free movement and conflict pressures degrade intersection. Airfields can be graded overnight. Convoys can cross borders faster than mutual legal assistance can move. Asset recovery and sanction status. Public records list arrests. Court-tested asset forfeiture linked to this plane is not visible in open sources. International enforcement shifted to early warning on irregular flights. Gap clarifier. Aircraft ownership remains contested in open data. Several filings are sealed or incomplete. Malian case files are not fully digitized. Extradition threads from Sahel states show gaps. If this work added clarity, tap like. It helps deterrence and recovery. Subscribe for records-led investigations that follow money, filings, and seizures. Share with someone who thinks illicit profits outlast institutions. Comment with case numbers or documents. Civil, source discussion only. Transparency makes recovery possible. Institutions remember.